our focus today will be on the Self-Denial Fund. Before we get any more into the conversation, I need to let you know that this conversation is being recorded. It will be posted on our YouTube channel. So if you don't want to be recorded or don't want to have your face recorded, please go down to the bottom left of your screen if you're on a laptop and click on the icon which says stop video, and you will see a red diagonal line go through that icon. We have muted you all, and we ask that you stay muted until there is a time to ask questions or make comments. And I think those are all the housekeeping notes. Everybody knows where the bathrooms are and the refreshments. So we will begin with our prayer of the order. O eternal Father, you have sent us your Son to teach us things pertaining to your heavenly kingdom. Give your blessing to our order wherever it may be throughout the world. Grant that we, your daughters, ever may discern your truth and bear the cross through the battles of our earthly life. Give us strength to overcome temptation and the grace to work to spread your kingdom and to gather your scattered sheep within your fold. Pour out upon us the sevenfold gift of the Holy Spirit, that we may always remember it is your work we are called to do, that all we think, do, or say may be pleasing in your sight. We ask it all for his sake, our King and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Catherine, or introduce or welcome to some of you, or many of you know Catherine Marshall Polite, who is serving on the National Council as our Self-Denial Fund Chair. Catherine.
Thank you, Christia. Good afternoon, sisters. Good to be here. The Self-Denial Fund is the fund that supports missionaries and missions around the world, including the U.S. Throughout the year, we as daughters set aside funds that might otherwise be used for something else. We are in prayer as to how the funds might be used. But in the interim, each time we deny ourselves that extra cup of coffee or dish of ice cream. Interesting that I chose food. But of course, it might be the extra subscription on your entertainment system. So you might consider dropping, for example, HBO or Lifetime. Whatever you decide, you are in prayer and listening for that spiritual guidance. And this should take place over the course of the year. February 2nd is our ingathering for the Self-Denial Funds. And that is when you would send the funds you saved, denying yourself, so that the funds can be a blessing to others. Here with us today are two of our past national presidents, Susan O'Brien and Grace Sears, who will share some of the history of the Self-Denial Fund. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Catherine. The Self-Denial Fund, also known as the Lily Funston Ward Memorial Fund, is the order's oldest fund. Miss Ward, a daughter from Winchester, Virginia, offered her service in the China mission fields, and the board of the Episcopal Church accepted her offer. She began her service in 1894. The Fourth National Convention of the Order in 1896 decided to have a self-denial week in 1897. The time appointed to be the last week in Epiphany. The object of the week will be to provide money for the sending out of a missionary from the order. The method of the week will be that of self-denial, the cutting down of little comforts or luxuries to which we may be accustomed, the going without something we may want to buy, walking when we might ride, and in similar ways, saving such small amounts during each day of the week as may be possible. All daughters are asked to keep the fact in mind and to lay plans for observing the week. The March issue, 1897 issue of the Royal Cross reported the results from this fund have not been encouraging. Many chapters have failed to make even the smallest contribution. It further reports that contributions from this first week of self-denial totaled $419.33. Action to establish the fund really gathered momentum in 1897, till we're in a different century, after Miss Ward's death in July of 1897. Amongst her papers was a letter that she had written in 1896, and had asked for it to be read to the members at National Convention, which happened in 1897. And I read part of that. I come most earnestly and affectionately asking for the united prayers of the order. To this end, I beg that the convention will pass resolutions appointing some day when the rector of every parish where there is a chapter of the Daughters of the King will be requested to celebrate the Holy Communion with special intention for the Church in China. Following the reading of Miss Ward's letter to convention,
And so the
President-
song that we're going to be singing is
the president
Can't Give Up
appointed
Now.
a committee
And I
to
want
consider it.
encourage every single one
And
of you
later
that
during
you
that convention,
should not give
the
up
committee
as well.
offered several resolutions, including the committee begs leave to suggest that the self-denial week be observed every year, that the amount thus obtained be added to that already in hand and become a fund to be known as the Lily Funston Ward Memorial Fund, to be used always for maintenance of a missionary in China from the Daughters of the King. All resolutions at that convention, proposed at that convention, were adopted. The 1898 issue of the Royal Cross published a paper read to the National Convention in 1898 entitled Self-Denial Week and How to Keep It. It exhorted and instructed daughters on how to keep the self-denial week. And I read a small part of that too. It would not be impossible to give up every day for that short week, not one thing alone, but all things that are not absolutely essentials. And then, if opportunity offers, to give no more a special object or pleasure, as the time may be extended for anything like this, even it happened a little before or after this particular week. How are you keeping self-denial week? Or as Catherine said, days leading up to our ingathering time? The Royal Cross in September of 1809 further reported that the self-denial week returns were then sufficient to send a small missionary to China to pay her salary and expenses for a year. The council approved Miss Charlie Warnock to represent the order in China, thereby her becoming the order's first missionary. Grace, will you please continue the story?
I'll be happy to. Thank you, Susan. As you've heard, the Self-Denial Fund was originally meant to send missionaries to China. The order's last missionary there was Elda Joy Smith, who began work in China in 1937, but left for Hawaii in the 1950s after China became closed to all missionaries. In 1952, the order started supporting another ex-China missionary, Carmen Wolf, who went to Brazil. In 1858, Elizabeth Daniel took over Miss Wolf's work. Next slide. In the 1970s, Pat Powers, inspired by Elizabeth's work, went to Brazil as a volunteer. In the photo, she is there on the extreme left. Elizabeth Daniel is on the extreme right. And in the right middle, in the back row, is Carmen Wolf, who preceded them in Brazil. The Brazilian daughters, at least two of them were still active in Rio when I was there some years ago. Pat and Elizabeth were a highly effective team and introduced Brazilian women to the Daughters of the King. Next slide. When Elizabeth retired in 1991, President Whitty Isaacs and her team converted the Self-Denial Fund from a missionary support fund to a fund that issues grants. Bishop Anderson, who was national chaplain, encouraged the council to divert some of its donations to domestic mission work. The Self-Denial Fund began to support many short-term mission projects while still giving grants to long-term missionaries like Esther Miller, who went to Malawi, and Ruthie Smith, who worked with Native American tribes, and Ellen McGinnis, who went to China. Next slide. From 1993 to about 2012, the Self-Denial Fund supported many efforts to establish international chapters. It was the chief way we financed these explorations in various countries. So starting in 1993, daughters visited Alaska. There was a visit to Uganda, to Honduras, to Cuba. Barbara Ward, the first international chair, went to several different countries. Joyce Pipkin, who is now on our international committee, helped Haitian women form chapters. Pam Runyon went to Europe to form chapters and other places as well. So this is one of the main ways that we established self-denial, that we established international chapters in the current era through the Self-Denial Fund. So I'm turning it back to Catherine.
You need to
Catherine.
unmute, Catherine.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Monica. I was saying thank you, Grace, and thank you, Susan. Appreciate that background information. Our history is so key. So as we said, we support missions in the US and around the world. We support missionaries and mission trips for junior and senior daughters, and our preference is given to members of the order. So just want to give a little overview. When the committee, which includes Helen Bagwadden, she's chair of Daughters at Large, Monica Burden, who's, as you see, kind of handles our technology and also president of Province 1, and Nancy Severin, who's president of Province 7. When we receive an application, we review it to ensure it meets the criteria, and we're going to review that. I'll go over that with you shortly. This past year, through your efforts, we were able to fund, 7 projects and 13 international. And Lindy is going to talk a little bit about that. But those relief efforts did things like we supported books, or we were able to provide books and resources. I apologize. I'm reading my notes, and I'm also trying to read the slide there. So I think I'm going to rely on my notes. This past year, the pandemic made it difficult to travel. So many missions that involved traveling out of the country were postponed. The order, through the Self-Denial Fund, supported missions in the United States and some of our international daughter chapters, as indicated on the screen. And as we heard how some of those chapters were started. As COVID-19 began to impact our country, it did so throughout the world as well. Many countries do not have the infrastructure to mobilize and provide emergency fund in the same way the US is able to. Learning about this, the Daughters Executive Board made a decision to support our sister chapters. The chapters went through the same application process that everyone else does many thanks to the International Committee, which includes Pam Runyon, Lindy Kirk, Emily Thrasher, Grace Sears, and our wonderful office staff, Lynn Krimble, Michelle Sabato, and Rhonda Albright, who all worked feverishly to help get the funds out quickly. So although they went through the same process, as a team, everyone worked so that we could get the funds out to our sisters as quickly as possible. So Lindy, our chair of the international chair, is here to talk a little bit about the effort that took place with the international chapters. And Lindy, are you on? I know she also had another commitment today too.
Yes, I have zoomed
Wonderful.
from one call to another.
Thank you, Lindy.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this presentation. As we know, the COVID-19 virus first really reared its ugly head in Europe, and we began to get emails from Spain, our chapters in Madrid. Our chaplain there in particular, who is a daughter, asked for a grant and was encouraged to apply for a grant to provide food for her food pantry, or for the church's food pantry, because as people were leaving or losing their jobs, they were just unable to have the money to buy food, obviously, as happening all around the world. So that was our first grant, and it really was before COVID-19 hit most of the rest of the world. Obviously, it had been in China, and it was also in Italy, very badly hit, and Europe, UK, and then it hit the United States, and then everybody has been hit with it. So around about April or May, we began to get emails from people just describing what the plight was in their countries. And it was just really horrible to read some of the emails, how people were living on nothing. They had not only no food, they had no medicine, and they were just desperate. And so that we had no funds as international to provide for that. It's outside our normal Daughters Giving. But we did think that the Self-Denial Fund could provide some funds, particularly, as Catherine said, because of the pandemic, people were not applying for grants. So the fund had some money. So this was put to the executive committee, the National Executive Committee, who very graciously agreed that we could use the Self-Denial Fund for these grants. And so we asked our countries, we have 21 countries, and we did give out, I believe that's 14 grants, and we asked several countries and they said no, they were all right. Italy said they were all right. Trinidad and Tobago said they were all right. And some we didn't hear from, but we still hope to be able to provide something to them. So they have been used. Have you got some photos there, Monica, that you could bring up? They have been used. This was the Diocese of Southern Malawi. Malawi is our country with the most daughters. It has, as far as we know, over 5,000 daughters. There are in 4 dioceses. So rather than give one grant, the same as we would to a country that had one chapter, Grace, who is our International Committee contact for Malawi, or liaison, suggested that we actually give them 4 grants, because each diocese has thousands of daughters. And so that was agreed to. And so we sent 4 grants to Malawi. And this is one of them. The daughters in Malawi wear these beautiful blue and white uniforms, I suppose you would call them. And you can see how they have used them. This next one is Panama. That is a church I used to worship in when we lived in Panama. In fact, it's the Cathedral of St. Luke in Gorgas, which is part of Panama City now. And it shows their food pantry and the grant that was given to them. The grant in Panama was shared between 2 chapters, and the other chapter provided debit cards for their daughters to go to the grocery store. We also gave grants to Uganda, where this is not Uganda, obviously, but I don't have photos of Uganda, but they were just giving them great big bags of rice, basically. I think it was rice or maize, and it provided a lot of food for Uganda. People were dying because they were restricted to their villages and no food was getting in. And so they had a desperate need, and they were very grateful. And our chaplain there and one of the priests who's a daughter were handing out food. So in Mexico, we gave, they gave to 3 or 4 different, in 3 or 4 different towns through daughters that we have chapters in northern Mexico. It was wonderful to see the photos and descriptions as they sent them back, and they were so grateful for this money. Now, to us, $1,000 to feed the congregation, daughters first, congregation, other people, extended family, or whoever they were able to feed, doesn't sound like a lot, but to all these countries, it brought a great deal of food. Cuba is in desperate straits at the moment, so I'd ask you to pray for them. Not only do they have little food, and they've had rationing for years now, not only do they have little food, they have no medicine, no supplies, no sanitary supplies. And so we did send them money. In fact, we sent them some money last year through Central Florida Assembly, very kindly provided money for them. And one of the churches has a little farm where they raise sesame and seed, and they gather the oil from that, and they got goats and they put plants in. So these grants are very well received, and actually I would describe them as life-saving. We hope that daughters will give to the Self-Denial Fund. You can't earmark it for international grants, but I would like, and this is news to everybody, I would like to go back and ask for another round of grants this spring, because the situation is still desperate in many countries, and the vaccine rollout there is going to be far slower than it is here. So it's going to last all year, I think. And then for the economies to get back and people to get back to work, it's going to take even longer. So thank you for your support. I know many of you sent grants, either diocesan assemblies or individuals or provinces, and that has helped us, and it's helped supply the money through the Self-Denial Fund to send money. So thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you, because it was a most wonderful thing.
Thank you so much, Lindy. Appreciate it, and really appreciate your jumping on, given that you had another commitment today as well. And I think your point is well taken, that when we look at how the vaccine is going in our country, we can anticipate that it's going to be a lot slower elsewhere. So it certainly is something for us to consider. I just want to go back, and I know, and Monica, you don't have to put it up. I just think I can. I think it's important to give you some sense of how funds were spent last year before COVID. We were able to. You're going to hear from Willpower Christian Cyclists a little later. Well, shortly. We were able to provide them with assistance for Bibles and crosses. St. Matthew's for books and spiritual resources. At the SAMS program in Madagascar, feminine hygiene products, the women there during that time of the month are, and they are actually, many of them are go out and as evangelists, and they're unable to do that during that time. But so having the hygiene products allows them to continue their work. Christ Church Jerusalem, Bibles in 60 languages, and that is spearheaded by one of our former national presidents. I'm not certain on the pronunciation on this, and I've been looking at it for a couple of years now, and I've been promising myself when I have time, I'm going to look to see it. I'm going to spell it for you: Nyakishi. African mission. And if someone knows how to say that, I'd love to know myself. So if you'd unmute yourself and let me know, I'd greatly appreciate it. And so there's a mission there that has a hospital, and we've supported them there in the work. And then Gateway of Grace Ministries out of Texas, and we provided support. And so that's what we did for the fiscal year 2020. So this year, what happens when you lose your pages, right? I wanted to go back. We are fortunate to have representatives from 3 of the missions. I think I lost, bear with me, please, folks. I do apologize. As we indicated earlier, it was difficult to travel. So many of the missions involved traveling out of the country were postponed. The order through the Self-Denial Fund has been able to support missions in the US. So we're fortunate to have representatives from 3 of those missions today who will talk about their work and how the funds were used to bless others. Evangelist Patricia Ralph, she's the advisor to the Mission 316s, a youth relief ministry that live streams youth-led for youth church service. Evangelist Judy Bauman, founder of Willpower, Christian cyclist whose purpose is to spread the gospel message of Jesus Christ to people the team meets along the roads. And Pastor Tracy Porter, founder of God's Hands and Feet Global Ministry. They strive to meet the spiritual needs while providing for the physical needs such as hunger and clothing. And thank you, ladies, for being with us today. And you actually see one of the youth missionaries there. And Miss Ralph, I think, is with us, ready to speak. They also had another commitment today, but were able to join us. Thank you so much.
You're well welcome. Good afternoon to everyone. Once again, I'm Evangelist Ralph, and I'm the advisor for the Mission 316's nonprofit organization. Just to give you a little overview of who we are, we focus on to help youths and families to gain integrity, passion, and pride, which we indeed believe that is needed to transform our environment, our communities. The organization began in August of 2017 by a brother and sister team, Dinar Ralph, who is 16 now, and Cayenne Ralph, his sister. She's 17 years old. And since then, both sister and brother team set out on a mission to save youths and families by giving supplies, supplying them with food. We are faith-based ministry. We believe that John 3:16, when it states, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And if anyone believe in him, they would not perish, but they would have everlasting life." So Cayenne and Dinar, under the guidance of myself and my husband, have been instrumental in ministering and sharing the gospel with the youths, giving them tracts, going out to the hospitals to visit them when they're sick. They visited youths in the nursing homes. They've been going into the schools, speaking to the children. Dinar is a motivational speaker as well. And not only that, he's a 2-time author, and go in and they promote youth empowerment, to recruit the youths to walk a better path of life, to climb the ladder to success. Their message strongly to the youth is in Philippians 4:13, where they minister at times to the youths and inform them that they can do anything through Christ who have strengthened them. And again, like I said before, that we are a given ministry. We have given school supplies, Bibles, tracts, anything biblical, spiritual to build the social and emotional needs of these young people. We are so blessed to have partnered with the Order of the Daughters of the King. And we also wanted to thank you for partnering with us and making this mission possible for not only for Kind and Then Out to carry it, but for other children to be blessed by God through this ministry. So on your screen, as you can see, is Kyan Ralph. And I mentioned before that she is the gospel artist, has just released her first gospel album in August of last year. And today, as I speak, I'm in the studio. The children are launching their gospel band, again, which is another way of reaching out to the young people and bringing them in to the kingdom of God. So Kyan is gonna render an item at this time for you. It's from her gospel album, and that song was written by me, yours truly. It's the title of the album, Born to Shine. I pray that it may bless your soul and that God may continue to bless you, the daughters of the King. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Once again, the title of the song is Born to Shine. I pray it may bless you in a mighty way. Thank you.
This is the song Born to Shine, sung by myself, written by my mother. And I hope this song blesses your heart, and just know that you are here and you are born to shine just like me. So be encouraged.
Spirit.
you, Cayenne. Thank you, Miss Ralph. And they are out in New York. I don't know about you all, but I'm ready to shout right now. So thank you. And Monica, thanks for putting that on.
This
So next up is Judy Bauman, and their headquarters is out of Virginia. Thank you so much. Evangelist Bauman.
There you go. Thank you so much. That was an encouraging song, and I'm ready to shout too. I was kind of singing along with her since I heard it last night. But it reminds me of Matthew 5:16, where Jesus says, "Let your light so shine that others may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Wheelpower Christian Cyclists was founded really on a passion that God gave me to go throughout our own United States and talk to people about Jesus. The bicycle is a wide open tool. We can talk to people anywhere. We're not locked in behind car doors. We're not just on this journey of trying to accomplish miles, but we're here to share the love of Jesus and tell people who he is and what he did for them. We're a Great Commission, a nonprofit organization. At John 15:16, where Jesus says, "You didn't choose me, but I chose you, and I chose you to go and bear fruit that will last forever." And so our passion, our purpose is to talk to people and share the love, find out where they are in their spiritual journey, and to move them one step closer to the Lord. We've all been commanded, as we know, to go and make disciples of all nations and to plant the seeds, to water seeds that have been planted, and to give God the glory when we see people come to know Christ. So I've been on the road for 30 years. I'm the founder of Wheelpower. I live in Lynchburg, Virginia, and I've been a single mom since my son was 3. So I've been passionate about the Lord since I got saved in 1978 as a 28-year-old woman, and blessing to lead my son to the Lord, and my whole family now knows the Lord. Still pray for my brothers and sisters who do not know the Lord, but out on the road, I've come to realize that every person that we meet is somebody's mother, brother, sister, cousin, some connection. There's always that connection. And when I look at people, I just realize, boy, without Jesus, there's no hope for the future. There's no hope for their eternal soul. And so I train Christians how to share the faith, how to start conversations. I only take people who are saved and know the Lord. We meet thousands upon thousands of people. We've covered 2.5 million miles in the last 28 years of being on our bicycles. We've never had an accident, praise the Lord for that. But we've just met thousands. These are just a few pictures of our team. We pedaled across the United States, and we do a lot of short-term trips right now. And one of the things about our trip is I love this whole connection, how God brought you all into my life, the Daughters of the King, and the blessing that you have been to us in supporting us through your self-denial grant funds. And Chesley Bowden here in Lynchburg, been friends through playing tennis. Probably 20 years ago, I met Chesley, and she's known of my ministry for years and what God is doing through us. And, we're all partners in the gospel, and we all have the gifts and talents that God's blessed us with to then use them to help others, whether it's through food ministries and through, just getting the word of God out, and, being an athlete and all that. God just knew my gifts. He knew my heart and my passion, and he sent us out. Our trips are tough. This whole self-denial, I tell the team, we're not going to luxury hotels. We sleep in Sunday school rooms on the floors of churches. And we sometimes take showers. We've taken showers, hose out in the backyard, of a church, or we've gone to firehouses. We've given up, I don't really ever say we've given up anything. We're giving all that we can to be used of the Lord this way. And it's just been an exciting journey. We've of just teaching and training others, believers. And sometimes when we get into a town, I play the guitar and I also write music. I guess maybe the next time I'd love to share one of the songs called Let the Light that tie right in with what we just heard. But we'll go into a local city park and just pull out the guitar. I also juggle and do all kinds of fun things just to bring people together, to get people to come out. A lot of times we'll have some snack foods or whatever. But the main thing is to get them together to hear the gospel message. Just from these few pictures that you see, our teams were in bright uniforms. Really, that was from Matthew 5:16, let your light so shine. But for me personally, sometimes in a year, I will be gone from my family up to 6 to 8 months on the road and going into communities to get into churches to help teach other believers how to share their faith so that we can, see God at work. The verse that really got to me was Romans 1:16 that says, I am not ashamed of the gospel because it's the power of God until salvation to all who believe. And I think all of us, we know the Lord, we love the Lord. And for me, God convicted me that if I remain silent, I must be ashamed of what I really believe. And boy, when I prayed and asked God to loose my tongue and to get out there and find a way to talk to people, he has just blessed abundantly. And I can't thank you all enough for your partnership. I've lived by faith for over 30 years. I was a college administrator at Liberty University and got laid off when my son was a senior in high school. I went through a difficult time. I was a beaten, abused wife by my husband. We were only married about 4 years, but I am an Air Force veteran and I married my recruiter. So if you want to chuckle out of something, I thought that was kind of a funny thing. But God, when he showed me the truth of the word of God and I got saved, I knew it was for such a time as this, and the trials and challenges of life always strengthen our faith and move us to where God really wants to use us. And so your funds help us with we do provide some food for our team on like SAG food that we call it. And a lot of times, like you'll see some of the pictures where we've gathered, well, that's just kind of us, but people will come out and just gather all around us to find out who we are and what we're doing. It's really pretty exciting. But we have a lot of materials that we've written, and I'd like to, if I haven't, anyone that would like a copy, my testimony has been published, Can We Pedal Our Way to Heaven? It's how I came to know the Lord. Probably one of my funniest stories is that my mother was actually, was a nun in the Catholic Church, and she left the convent and she met my dad and they got married, and she got out of the habit and had 7 children. So I think I have to throw that in. But, so I'm thankful that she left the convent. I am in the middle of 7 children. And, but, I look at how God has used my life and to just, be a bright light in our community. And so we travel community to community across the United States. We do have people involved with our ministry from other countries, but that's not been the main focus of our ministry. It's been focused here in the United States. So I want to thank you for your funds that help us to get materials, to get tracts, to be able to hand out things like that, to be able to even help us with some of our transportations expenses right now with COVID-19 and not being able to stay in churches like we have been. I have found some people have taken us into homes. I'm taking smaller teams this year, but we're also staying in Christian camps that have like lodging hotels or dormitories, doing some of those types of things. And a good friend of mine is connected with a hotel chain, and they've actually are giving us some different rooms too. So that's just a little bit about what we do. I try to start what I call hubs where Christians, because all these people come from all over the United States, they in turn continue to ride with local bicycle groups in their town and their community on their trails, and continue to teach. So I do teach Christians a lot, and I've written a book called Until the Road Ends. It's how to talk to anybody, anytime, any place about Jesus. So thank you all so much for what you mean to me. I look forward to meeting you all. I'd love to come to your communities and bring a team on bicycles and let's have some wonderful fellowship together face to face too. But thank you for your prayers, your support.
Thank you so much, Evangelist Judy. And as I said, it was so nice meeting. We met for the first time yesterday. We're actually able to see each other. So this is one of the rainbows in the pandemic, or to say another. So thank you so much. And we started talking about, daughters are all over, so we can maybe meet in some of these places and
Right.
do some of this together. Yeah.
That'd be great.
For another conversation. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you all.
And so Pastor Tracy is with us today also. And Pastor Tracy is with God's Hands and Feet Global Ministry. And she's going to talk about a little bit about what they do. And they're out in California.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you all for inviting me to the Daughters of the King. I am the pastor and founder of God's Hands and Feet Global Ministry, which began officially 11 years ago, registering with the state of California as a 501c3 nonprofit ministry, but unofficially began in 2006. I was a student at Fuller Theological Seminary, and I heard in my spirit, God's Hands and Feet Global Ministry. And I was like, oh, I wonder where that church is. But it was in my heart, and because that was what God spoke to me. And he slowly revealed to me that was what the work he had for me to do here. When I graduated from Fuller in 2002, I just started to operate inside of that calling. God's Hands and Feet Global Ministry, the mission of God's Hands and Feet Global Ministry is to provide tangible goods and services to those in need, physically and spiritually, because people are hungry, both physically and spiritually. And so it just became very interesting to me, having relocated here from Rochester, New York, myself and 3 children in a Dodge that I drove across country 3,000 miles. This place, I live in Los Angeles, California, and it was very interesting to me how you could see such great wealth right alongside such great poverty. And it just was heartbreaking sometimes. There are whole families on the street. And I worked as a hospice chaplain and a bereavement counselor for many years. And I also worked at a hospital psych unit and at a homeless program. And so it just all came together, and God just used those experiences and my contacts within the community to serve the people. So it became a mission to bring Christ to people in a real, tangible way. The other mission that I had was to feed those that were hungry. Even back then, I realized that people were struggling to eat, even though people didn't recognize it. Much like now, how everyone recognizes it in the midst of this pandemic, hunger has been a real issue for a long time. I remember when they started calling it food insecurity. And I was kind of confused about what is food insecurity. And I remember my godmother, who is now a part of the great cloud of witnesses, she passed away last year in May. She would have been 100 years old last month. She talked about living through the Depression, Mother Vernell, and she said, listen, they can call it all, they can dress it up all they want. They can call it food insecurity or whatever. But if your ribs are touching, they're touching and you're hungry. And people came to me and would be almost shamed to say that they didn't have anything to eat. And it made me start to think about, well, how would Jesus want us to respond to this? And so we began to have gather items and had a food pantry for the ministry and began to feed people. And it started out with us feeding maybe about 16, 17 families. And at Thanksgiving 2020, we fed 156 families, not just locally, but we also fed 5 families in Las Vegas, Nevada. We fed a family in South Carolina. We fed a family in Ohio. We fed families all over. And just if they got in contact with us and said that they had a need, we did everything in our power to meet that need. So in Thanksgiving 2020, we fed 156 families. The food pantry is ongoing, so we feed people on a regular basis, not just at holiday time. We also partner with Prison Fellowship for Angel Tree. And so we served 113 children and 43 families last month for Angel Tree. And I think we've been partnering with Prison Fellowship over 30 years. And so it is a quest for us. We don't just give people physical food. We also provide them with devotional materials. That is how I connected with the Society of St. Andrews. I was reading their devotions online, and I ordered the devotionals to put in our Easter baskets. We would give everyone a basket of food and a whole roasting chicken or a ham. And I also would include the coin boxes and the devotionals from the Society of St. Andrews. And one year I tagged Society of St. Andrews in the link, and Betty Easter from Society of St. Andrews contacted me and said, "Hey, do you put our devotional in the baskets?" I said, "Yes." And that is how I connected with the Society of St. Andrews. Over the course of the ministry of God's Hands and Feet Global Ministry, the mission has been for us to connect to other people to serve the children of God. And God has blessed us to do that. Just like I connected with Society of St. Andrews, I also connected with UMCOR, the United Methodist Committee on Relief. We support the work that they do worldwide in the midst of disasters and tragedies. We also are connected to Kiva, providing grants and loans to people that are all over the world. And now in the midst of this pandemic, we are serving right here at home because we are can't move the way we normally do and do things the way we normally do. But we thank God for what we are able to do. People that are losing loved ones, we are providing grief support through the Hospice Foundation of America, paying for a yearly subscription of a grief newsletter called Journeys that they are well known for. And we also pay for that subscription for the family and loved ones of those who passed away, especially in the midst of this pandemic. And we also send them a plant or flowers to just let them know that we are journeying alongside of them in their grief. And so we serve in the community, we serve the elderly, we serve the youth, we serve individuals, we serve families. This month, we normally take the children to there is a college expo, and we pay for the children and their families to go. This year is all virtual, and we will again pay for children to go, youth. They can apply to college and be accepted on the spot. They just have to have their SATs, their ACTs, and their transcripts and their letters of recommendation. We just do things ongoing to always be introducing Christ. It is our mission to introduce Christ in a way that is active and that people know that they are loved and that there is hope, and that hope comes through Christ. And so we do everything in our power to spread the gospel. It is the mission of this ministry to do that, and to also to serve, to feed people, because people are hungry. And as I said earlier, not just hungry physically, people are hungry spiritually and physically. And so it's easy to tell someone we're going to pray for them. But if someone presents to you and they're hungry, hunger is an immediate need. And so one of our mission statements for God's Hands and Feet Global Ministry says that we believe that people are entitled to 4 things: food, clothing, shelter, and love. And we try to operate on those things. Jesus said that we were to love the Lord our God. And he said, with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our mind. And the second commandment is to love our neighbors ourselves. And we do everything in our power to carry out that mission, hoping that people will have a moment where they will make that commitment to Christ and become disciples themselves. But we just plant the seeds. And as Paul said, he plants, Apollos water, and it's God that adds the increase. And so I am very grateful to the Daughters of the King for affording us this grant. It was awarding it to us. It has been a blessing, will continue to be a blessing. We do everything we can. Right now, we are in the midst of people getting evicted, and people are really struggling, have lost their jobs. And so we do whatever we can. This video showing is from Angel Tree 2019. We usually have a luncheon and have people come. And we have a program. I partner with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the Pathfinders Youth Group. We've partnered with them for the last 5 years, and this was held at their multi-purpose area. And it was a wonderful event. It was heartbreaking that we couldn't gather that way last month, but we still gave all the families gift cards to purchase the kids' gift requests. And there is a picture coming up of a young woman and her family. That family right there. That young woman came and met me with her husband and children. And a week later, she passed away in her sleep. And so we helped with her final arrangements. We've stayed in contact with her husband to see if the children are okay. We've done everything we can to support that family. And a month after she passed away, Tina, her mom, passed away. And so we serve on every end of the spectrum. This is from when we took the kids to the College Expo last year at the Los Angeles Convention Center. And again, we pay for the children and their families. The young women got a chance to see college on the spot. We provided lunch for them. We fed another student from Las Vegas whose team didn't show up. We had enough food. We fed them as well. And again, we bought the tickets for your parents and your whole family to come. We did not want money to be a barrier. And so we paid for the children to come. And that was a blessing. We do that every year. We do it yearly. And the third video should be from Thanksgiving 2019. We partner with schools in Pasadena. They do a canned food drive for us. The basket is the basket of food that we provide. Fresh fruits and vegetables came collect and partner with us. They come in and help put the baskets together. We have the people come out and pick up their baskets. They get a turkey in a bag and a basket of food. And those that can't cook, and we're giving old frozen meals. The whole thing, turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy, to pay for the meal. If they only have the ability to heat up. Last year, we gave everybody grocery store gift cards for Thanksgiving because we could not meet in person and do what we normally do. So we were able to serve. We're very grateful for that. And we have been serving since 2007. And so again, thank you to the Daughters of the King and the Self-Denial Grant Fund for being a blessing to us and helping us as we just walk out this mission and live it out of Christ and try to spread his love and his gospel and make disciples. We are very grateful to you and we will continue to serve. And we have a Facebook page that we have and it is God's Hands and Feet Global Ministry. And please, at any time, you can look at that Facebook page and do everything that we can to serve. So if you have any questions for me, please, you can get in touch with me. I'm very grateful and I feel honored and privileged to be a blessing to people in need. I have been homeless. I am a domestic violence survivor. I also serve. I used to work for AIDS Healthcare Foundation here in Los Angeles. HIV and AIDS is a huge part of my ministry as well. I had two family members that passed away, and I promised them that I would always be their voice and serve in that way. And so, again, I'm just grateful to be used by God in this way. And thank you. Thank you all for inviting me. I feel so honored and privileged. Thank you very much. God bless.
God bless you, Pastor Tracy. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening to the call.
Yes, ma'am.
I thank all of our guests today who came on to share the work that they've been doing. And Pastor Tracy is actually a newer grant that just went out several weeks ago. So, Monica, you want me to do this or you?
Nancy's going to do this.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Nancy. My apologies. I'm trying to.
No problem.
Yeah.
We'd like to invite you all now. This is a time for question and answers. And rather than going into breakouts, we thought we'd like to hear from everyone. If you have specific questions for any of our presenters and their amazing ministries, you can certainly use the raised hand button on your participants icon, or you can type a question into the chat, or like I said, raise your hands if you'd like to ask a question on the screen. Feel free to also consider the question before you on the slide. As you consider your own life and your acts of self-denial, how does that fit into your idea of what mission is? We'd really like to hear from you about mission from your side of the chapter.
Our first person with their hand raised is Francis Sharpless. Francis, can you unmute yourself and speak? We can't hear you yet. You need to unmute. Oh, she's disappeared. I can't even see her now. Anybody else want to raise your hand? So if you go to if you click on participants and open the participants window down at the bottom, it might be under a more button. There should be a way to raise your hand, and that way I'll see you. I can't, there's too many screens. So if you just physically raise your hand, we can't see you. All right, let's try Jenny Collier.
Yes, I was just wondering if the Native American population has been severely hit by COVID and lack of resources, and I just wondered if they had been considered for grants or if they knew about grants, because especially in Arizona, California, which have been, and Texas, been very hard hit by the virus. If any of the chapters in those areas had thought of grants for the Native American population.
I'll answer the first part. We haven't received any from the Native American population. And then I would look for the daughters that are here to present. Perhaps I see another hand raised. And while we're waiting to see if someone responds, if you are aware of or you have a relationship with any of the Native Americans in your part of the country, or you just maybe work that you're doing, we'd appreciate your, assisting us with that.
We had a question in the chat about contributing to the Self-Denial Fund via the website. I will post that link in just a second. And we have a hand raised from Barbara D'Antonio.
Good afternoon. Thank everybody for all the wonderful things that you're doing throughout, daughters. I really get a lot out of listening to you. One of the things that I've been doing, and I wanted to put out, this is for the Native Americans in South and North Dakota. I'm in Pennsylvania. If you're a knitter or a crocheter, they're in need of scarves, hats, and mittens. So if you could make any, I can somehow get an address to you guys for that. I've made like 14 scarves in the last 3 weeks and 6 hats, and I'm working on that kind of stuff. And the girl was just like beside herself when I said, would you be willing to accept that? And she says, most definitely, so if you knit, crochet, that would be wonderful. It gets very cold out there.
Do you have an established pattern?
I just use different ones. I mean, I can show you some of the things that I've made if you want.
Okay, could you put your information in the chat?
I will do that.
Okay, I do blankets for women going through chemotherapy, but I would love to do that also.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Carol Tucker.
Oh, okay. I did put some questions in the chat, but the last one was the people who work at the missions that we just saw from Virginia and the state of California. Some daughters involved physically involved or just the denials fund part?
It's just the involvement is our supporting the work that they're doing. But there aren't, to my knowledge, there aren't any daughters that are involved.
Okay.
Good question.
Hey, it's Chesley. Can I jump in there? Carol, I responded to you. Yes, Chesley has supported Willpower Christian Cyclists before.
Okay. All right.
Y'all came and put bags together. So I've had a couple of these missions and God's Hands and Feet Global Ministry in California. So yes, this daughter has supported those ministries to answer that question. Is that clear?
Yes,
Carol?
thank you. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you, Chesley.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted you to know that yes, I personally have, and other daughters in my chapter have supported those two particular ministries. So I'm real pleased and thankful to the Self-Denial Fund for them.
We had a comment from Loretta Brockington in the chat who said this mission work answers the question, Lord, what would you have me do? Which I think is a beautiful way to think of mission. Any other comments or questions, or shall we go on with our next piece is how to donate and how to apply. Oh, Jenny Collier's back and Susan O'Brien.
I just had a question. Can daughters apply for a grant for something within their own church? Like our food pantry has been really hit by the fact that, you know, we have such a great need because of what's going on with COVID, and the fact that, you know, people are not coming physically to our church. So which normally we have baskets that people put things in. So can we actually apply for a grant if that were necessary? I don't know that we would, but is that something that's possible?
I think we can probably answer that when we go. That's a good question. When we go to the criteria, we struggle with that because we also, part of mission is we look at the distance as well. It's a consideration in terms of what makes it a mission.
But I don't think that precludes you from applying. I think, you know, the short answer to that is apply and we'll make a decision about it. And that decision will be based on a number of factors. So it's not, you know, it's not an instant no, it's not an instant yes either. All applications are, you know, there's a consideration process that they go through. So, you know, I wouldn't want to discourage you from applying for that.
Yes, thank you for that, Monica. You're absolutely right. That very often we reach out via email or phone calls to get additional information before we make a decision.
Okay, Susan and then Helen.
So my comment is, how does self-denial fit my idea of mission? Of course, we're not all meant to be missionaries. That's not how God is calling us. But I remember Joan Millard's phrase when she was doing a report on self-denial to Triennial back in 2003 in Minneapolis. And as she would talk about the different, as we've heard today, the different programs that had received grants, she would say, thanks to the self-denial grant, you are there. And that's what I remembered that. So I may not be able to go out and be a missionary, but by denying myself something, I am in community with someone else.
Helen?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I'm from St. Matthew's Episcopal Church in Chandler, Arizona, and I've worked as their faith community nurse. And that has been a very, very rewarding mission for me. And it's something I think that sometimes is overlooked in a lot of parishes. You do have to be a registered nurse to work as a faith community nurse, but it is certainly a well-rewarded mission. During this time of COVID, I've had people calling me to find out if I'm okay, rather than just calling them. So it has been a very rewarding time.
That's great. That is a good mission.
I wish there were more people or nurses that wanted to do that type of work. You do have to take a program. There is a special program, and the program was started through the Presbyterian Church, but it involves a lot of different churches. It's not just any one church, but it's very rewarding.
Interesting. Chesley, you have your hand up. Or are you just showing off your baby?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear my name. I apologize. I have terrible reception. So yes, I am showing off my grandson. He's my birthday present. But in relation to the question, no, my friend's trying to take him, but I won't have any part of it. He makes me cute on my birthday. What is mission? As you consider your own life and your acts of self-denial, how does that fit into your idea of what mission is? Well, you know, a lot of us don't think about self-denial easily. I mean, it's something we sort of have to make ourselves do, to deny ourselves anything. And today's my birthday, so I'm hardly about denial. But I can make myself do it. And it's certainly for a good reason. I was honored to serve as Self-Denial Fund Chair from 2015 to 2018. And I was honored because before that, both of my daughters and myself were the beneficiaries of a Self-Denial Fund grant. It allowed me to go on a mission trip to Honduras, teach Bible study, build a soccer court, learn and spread the gospel with our sisters in Honduras. And it was a life-changing event. My older daughter, Julia, my younger daughter, Julia, went to Belize and did the same thing, you know, spreading the gospel in Belize, helping to improve some living conditions at the time. I mean, it was great. And my older daughter, Grace, went to London, England, to spread the gospel as part of the Bradford Youth Exchange. So the Self-Denial Fund has really benefited my family, and I'm grateful and want to deny myself or just give to support it. And I believe that it is under advertised, if that's a proper phrase. So we need to make an effort to let more people know it's there, and then encourage daughters to apply. And that's the thing. It just seems we have some funds that are available, and I'm sorry, Catherine and the Self-Denial Fund Committee, but I do love the SDF, I really do. And want to encourage more people to learn about it and take advantage of the opportunities that are available to them to spread the gospel as part of being a daughter of the King. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I just thank and praise all of you all for giving to the Self-Denial Fund, and for all of you being here today to learn more about it. So it's awesome. And now that's not to discount the Alpha Fund or the Masters Fund or the Endowment Fund. Continue to give generously to those two. But I personally love the Self-Denial Fund.
Thanks, Chesley.
Here ends my report.
Thanks, Chesley. We will be
Here ends my answering that question if I did.
We had one more hand up from Pat Dooley.
I hope so.
Oh, you need to unmute yourself, Pat.
Hi, I like to think of our Self-Denial Fund as not just mission, but also outreach. And that's a term that is sort of an old-fashioned term, but it's one that most people are so familiar with. but it's really a form of outreach. And when you do outreach, you're also doing public relations. And that was mentioned earlier, but it's such a good way of fostering what we are all about as daughters. So it is good public relations. But I'd like to go into something that our diocese, I'm in the Diocese of Central Florida, and we as a diocese each year adopt a particular outreach project or a mission for that particular year. And it has to be a 501c3 charitable type mission, but we then within the diocese raise funds as well. So we're reaching out through our self-denial fund, but we're also doing it through a second way of reaching out. So I would encourage the people that are involved with the self-denial fund to do as much publicity as you can about it within your diocese and share it with your chapters that you're in, and to think about expanding into something from just the chapters, the diocese itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. We are running low on time, so we've got 3 hands raised now. So we're going to go through these and then we're going to move on to how to apply and how to donate. Carol, you have your hand up.
Yes, I have another question. Would a homeless shelter be part of the self-denial mission fund? Would that fall under that same window?
It could be. It would depend on what the initiative is. But again, as Monica said, just piggybacking, I would say apply and we'll look at it and see if it fits in.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you. Thank you for thinking outside the box.
June Paul, you're up.
I just want to say I'm almost making a confession about the self-denial fund, because as an at-large member, I haven't been paying attention to any of the funds or been very good about financially supporting DOK. But now that I'm healthier and my mind is thinking more clearly and I'm connected this way, hopefully I can do that. I really appreciated all the speakers today and everybody's little stories. I want to talk what my idea of mission is, because I heard Susan say that she doesn't consider herself a missionary, but I've met her in the past. And, you know, maybe we aren't missionaries sent to go to foreign countries or to set up foundations to send people to foreign countries. But every Sunday when you gather in church, and maybe it's not happening on Zoom, and so maybe daughters could help with this and tell your clergy how important it is, even though we're only so many places meeting on Zoom. When we meet in church, we are all sent out every Sunday. Let us go into the world, rejoicing in the power of the Spirit and doing good things, however we are all sent out. And so your mission doesn't have to be a worldwide global thing. It can be ministering to your own family. It can be running an errand for somebody. It can be, it's in your heart. Your work is your mission field. That's just my own personal perspective on that. And I think when we deny ourselves things, that's an important thing if we deny and then give to somebody who's needy. And when I was actively doing that, I had a container. I had 3 containers in my home. And when I denied myself something, I put it in the self-denial fund. And when I when I wanted it to go to the Alpha Fund and the other fund. And so I had those, and like I spent a year denying myself buying coffee. So every day, I didn't just say, oh, in a year's time, I spend this amount of money. But every day, I intentionally took the cost of a cup of coffee and put it in one of the cans. And that makes your giving more intentional, and you can pray about where the money's going to and who's going to be receiving, and ask the Lord to bless. So those are just my thoughts on how I've done that in the past, and we'll get back to doing.
Thank you, June. Grace?
Yes, thank you. Couple of things. I'd like to reiterate what June is saying in one sense, because it is important to pray as well as give. We're going to pray the self-denial prayer before we end, and that is essential when we give, to pray for the mission as well as to give to the mission. I think we can give a lot more to the self-denial fund than we've been giving. Jen Millard was mentioned, and I think one year we had 50,000 given to the self-denial fund. We're not doing that anymore. And there's been some inflation since then too. So those are things I'd like to, the one other thing I'd like to say is that Chesley made it clear, when you give, particularly when you get involved actively in whatever kind of mission it is, whether it's close to home or going to Belize, you receive. We receive when we give, particularly when we give actively to someone else and get involved in mission. So those are things to remember. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace.
Hey, can I jump in again because it's my birthday?
Just because
it's Chesley here.
We wouldn't let you do it otherwise.
Right. Sorry. And so I just have to say, in relation to what Grace just said about the self-denial fund having $50,000, whatever year that was, when I took over in 2015, when I became the self-denial fund queen, that's when I deemed myself queen, because I was trying to raise money, which we don't do, but I was raising awareness about self-denial fund. $14,000, ladies. Can you say 14,000? I saw that and I said, what? I said, how can we only have $14,000 in the self-denial fund? That's like 7 trips at $2,000 a trip. You know, that's like nothing. So I donned my crown with SDF on it at Canuga, and people started saying, is it your birthday? I'm like, no. Well, what's SDF? I said, well, let me tell you about that. Self-denial fund. Anyway, yeah, 14,000. It got low. And so, yeah, we need to promote it, which I do. And my friend Jenny Collier, where are you, Jenny? Are you in Arizona? Did I hear that? Anyway, her birthday's February 2nd, and she's going to bring this up to her chapter. And I'm like, heck, my birthday's today. So I'm just telling you all today that Chesley is going to make a donation to the Self-Denial Fund in honor of her birthday. That's right. And it'll be good. It'll be good. Not for every year I've been born. It'll be more. It'll be more than 29, since I'm only 29. But anyway, I'm making a donation because Jenny had that great idea. So Jenny, thank you. I'm making a donation to SDF because of my birthday. All right, that's the end of my talk for this moment. Love you guys, girls, daughters.
Thank you, Chesley. Happy birthday. Kathy, I think you're up again.
I just want to say thank you all for your input. Susan, you're right. We deny ourselves, we pray, and we are missionaries in that light, or that's the involvement. So I appreciate that. June, those are great suggestions. Appreciate that. Of course, Pat and Chesley, appreciate you and your input. And Chesley, yes, you are the self-denial queen. Thank you for your input, dear. So we just wanted to take you, in the interest of time, and I thank you all for your input I will say this now so we don't have to come back to me, that if you are aware of groups of or individuals that are working to spread the gospel that might benefit from additional financial support, please encourage them to submit an application. Okay, and so the applications, including the criteria and instructions, can be found on the DOK website. And Monica has pulled that up for us. And the application requirements specifically asks for how the monies will be used and who will benefit. 50 words, some people do more, but it doesn't have to be extremely lengthy. How this work will spread God's kingdom and how it relates to the baptismal covenant, or how it fits the Great Commission. And then the payment request form, once people do 1 and 2, that's the most important, but the payment request form, if we're able to provide the funding, is key, because that lets us know, and it lets the folks in the office know where the check is going and who it should be made out to. So that's pretty key. And then there's an IRS form, a W-9, which is the request for a taxpayer identification number and certificate for payment. And that's if the recipients are receiving grants over $600, and we have not received any requests for any less than that. So pretty much then everyone is expected to fill out that W-9 form. Okay. How's our time? Oh, okay. We had planned to actually take you to the site, but it's really, you just, again, go on the site and it's all there. There's also a really neat, we have a cross there. We'd like to fill that cross in by the end of this fiscal year. Can you take us there?
Yeah, I have to go back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Monica. Okay, and that's on the website too. And you all remember Anne Marie, that was Anne Marie's brainchild. And so we want to fill that up with, it's black and white now, so we want to get some color in there, and that will be the, our goal this year is to fund 30 mission projects for this fiscal year. So help us do that. It's it's a little more challenging, as we said earlier, because people are not comfortable, understandably, traveling. But there's some wonderful ideas out there of people doing things closer to home and not having to travel. So I think we can continue our work.
And I also posted the guidelines that are on the application form into the chat there so that you all can look at it. The question about, you can see that one of those there says the work should be done outside of your local area. But again, I wouldn't let that discourage you from applying necessarily. Mm-hmm. We'll take it into account, but having been a graduate student for a very long time, never don't apply for a grant because you think you aren't going to get it. You definitely won't get it if you don't apply for it. If you apply for it, you might get it. So you might as well apply. It's not very hard to apply for. So I would encourage you to go ahead and apply.
Mm-hmm.
We will close this session today with a prayer for the Self-Denial Fund. O God, who summoned the church and her faithful to be the messenger of your gospel, receive the gifts of your daughters to hasten your message of love to the ends of the earth. Open our hearts and enable our service to reflect your glory, awakening the light of your presence in the lives of others in your name, our Lord and King, Jesus Christ. We offer ourselves in our petitions. Amen.
I guess this would be me. Our next conversation with daughters. Well, thank you all. First of all, thank you all presenters and Self-Denial Fund Grant Committee for your work in making this presentation to us this afternoon. Our next conversation with daughters will be held on February 13th, next month, and we will be focusing on the Good Book Club. The Good Book Club is a church-wide study of this year, the Gospel of Mark during Epiphany. So it will end, I believe, that same week, and then we will talk about Mark and the study. If you're not involved with the study but want to be, you can easily find it on the Episcopal Church website, and there are resources also available for the study. So as we close, let us say our motto together. For his sake, I am one. I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. What I can do, I ought to do. What I ought to do, by the grace of God, I will do. Lord, what will you have me do? And I want to also thank all 118 of you who have hung in there with us, as well as those who had to leave early for whatever reasons. We appreciate your participation and support of these programs, and certainly appreciate it as an opportunity to be in community with daughters from everywhere during this period of pandemic. Good night and God bless.